when Christopher Columbus discovered about America discovery has given a wide range of scope because we got the abundant land, the new varieties of crops, the minerals, which gave a scope for large number of countries to come and occupy them. And as the availability of land is more, the number of people are very less. Most of the people who are living in America are the people those who have got migrated from European countries, or they were picked up as slaves from Africa. So that has given a trade and lives for the people in America. The other major interesting point what we have is America not only had this, and today America we call as United States of America, but Christopher Columbus discovered America, which is a very large continent comprising of North American continent. So according to him, America means Canada, USA, Mexico and countries like Peru, all the Caribbean islands together he called it as America. So the minerals, the metals which are available in Peru and Mexico were also gathered by the European countries, and they actually worked as an input for the countries to occupy the countries in Asia. So European countries need funds. The funds are being supported by the minerals and metals which are available in America, especially in the countries like Peru and Mexico. So these countries started to make the European countries to become rich, wealthy. Then automatically they started to buy the latest equipped weapons, boats, army, and start to attack the other colonial countries in Asia and Africa. So their kingdom of colonial empire started to flourish and become larger and larger because of the support what they are getting from Peru and Mexico lands. And America has been a source for the slaves. They started need slaves because they need to do agriculture. There the basic European people do not have much stamina to work hard because they do not get much exposed to sunlight. When it comes to Africans basically are thick-skinned people because they experience heavy amount of sun rays. Their skin is completely dark toned and even their hair gets curled up because of the extreme heat what they do. So that nature of the Africans makes them to do lot of hard work. That inherits the capacity for them to do lot of hard work, which is required for the Americans to do in their crops and fields. That is a basic reason why Americans are very much interested to have slaves from African countries. Then moving on to the other point, what we have, the legends of South America, especially those who have heard about the fabulous city, the city of enormous wealth, that is none other than the city in South America, that is El Dorado. El Dorado has been fabled of city of gold. So people started to move in search of gold to that particular city to identify the city and to do the mining to acquire gold from there. That's how people started to move towards South America also. So North America and South America are being occupied by people. And then we have the Spanish conquerors who are very clever and extraordinary people. Why did I use the words like very clever and extraordinary people? Because Spanish people are able to control Brazil for more than 100 years. And it's very easy for them actually because they never used to fight with guns or weapons. Why not guns and weapons? Because if you carry guns that can be identified by the people, local people, they may understand that you are coming into their kingdom to occupy the kingdom. But the Spanish people used to carry not the weapons but the germs with them. Yes, what you heard is right. The germs, the diseases. So Spanish people used to carry the germs like smallpox, and smallpox has been a deadly killer. There is no medicine for smallpox. So the long installation and lack of immunity. The basic people of Americans are the people those who got migrated from Europe, as I told you just now. So these people do not get exposed to much to sunlight, so they do not have much of the immunity power. So when it comes to the Spanish people introducing the disease of smallpox, because of the lack of immunity, these people are becoming weak and killing themselves, or they are being killed because of the dreadful disease. Because of this dreadful disease, the most capable people are being killed or vanished away from the place. Obviously, it becomes very easy for the conqueror to occupy that place. That's what it rightly mentioned by the writer John Winthrop, who mentioned that blessings for the colonists. Smallpox has been a blessing for the colonists by the god by clearing the lands and making it possible for them to occupy the lands. These all possibilities made the Spanish people to expand their colonial kingdom to various corners of the world. This is how they used to do the biological warfare. Even today we are scared to listen the word like biological warfare, where people do not fight or countries do not fight with military, with arms, with nuclear weapons, but they just simply introduced a chemical or a germ into the community, which later on passes through the other people, and later on it becomes a deadly disease in the country, which automatically ruins the economy, which automatically ruins the people's living standard there. That's what the Spanish people have done way back, and they have targeted the colonies, and they were very successful in achieving their targets. This is a very difficult point to accept, but it is a fact which we need to understand that. And as we move on, other than that, the countries like China and India are considered to be the richest countries during that period up to 18th century. So that's the fundamental point which made the European countries to find out the sea routes to India, to find out all other possibilities to reach to India and Asia, because China and India are the filthy rich countries till that time, and China has been restricting the overseas trade, doing very limited trade, which also made the possibility of lack of income for the people in the West. So they need the other possible opportunities for them to get involved in that and to fight and get their freedom of trade. So once we get trade, we can flourish. This is the underlying concept between them, and to explore the richness to web, gold, metals and all these things from India and in China, that made the other countries to fall on a fray towards India or towards Asia. Let us look at some of the key points which are in Europe. If you take guns and move on, it is very easy for the enemies to identify it and they would like to destroy it. But if a disease is taken, with some people who are diseased, we cannot identify what is the actual problem. And by the time you identify that one, the entire country would be in trouble, which automatically cleans off the most capable person and makes it easy for the conquerors to occupy the lands. The next most interesting fact in Europe is that poverty and hunger are in Europe till the later part of the 19th century. And not only this, they also have the deadly diseases widespread and religious conflicts. So 18th century has also brought the new concept of slaves from Africa. As I told you before, we need strong people who can do hard work and withstand with the hot sun, which is not possible for the Europeans nor for the Americans, because Europeans are the people those who got migrated to America also. So it's not possible for neither for the Europeans nor for the Americans to do a lot of hard work by withstanding in the hot sun and working in the large fields. So the best possible alternative for them is to explore the slaves, bring the African thick-skinned people who can do a lot of hard work even in the withstanding hot sun. So get them, brand them as slaves and force them to work for a long period and earn huge profits. This is the possible alternative what the Europeans and the Americans thought during that time. And by 18th and 19th centuries, they were able to capture many of the slaves from Africa and put them into the agricultural field works and started to produce cotton and sugar in very large scale market. So that's how the changes have been occurred, and the conquests, the diseases and the trades. So this is a brief recap. Let's have a brief look at the points now. World has been shook off when the new discovery of sea route, the news has spread to the entire Europeans. They always tried to explore the countries in Asia and Africa as soon as possible. The reason for that, as I told you before, China and India are branded as the richest countries till the 18th century. So possible to get all the wealths and explore all of them and occupy the countries and try to squeeze their wealth. The possibilities of the Europeans were always to gather the wealth. And next, Indian Ocean has been always bustling with the trades of goods, people, knowledge and customs. As the time passed on, with the discovery of America, abundant land and crop minerals, which made the people to explore towards America, and at the same time possibility of the trade of the people, for making them to move towards America, picking up the people from Africa and sending them to America. And the precious metals which are available in Peru and Mexico, which financed the countries of Europe during that time, because they need huge investments in order to go for a long voyages towards the east. That fund has been raised from the precious stones and metals which they were able to collect from Peru and Mexico. That's how the European countries got much benefited from the new discovered land, America. And then the legends were in the race to find out the most fabulous city of gold, that is El Dorado in South America, which also made the possibility of exploring South America and later on occupying South American countries. So that's how the colonial system expanded to a very larger scale, and the concept of diseases enters here. Spanish kings or the conquerors, instead of carrying guns, metals, weapons and everything, they used to carry the diseased people who are filled with germs, and they introduced the smallpox disease to the place where they need to occupy that one. And this has been a very deadly disease, and the people not having any proper idea how to save themselves from the smallpox, and there is anyway no possible medicine available to them at that time. So thousands of people used to disappear because of this deadly disease. Automatically the land would be cleared. It becomes very easy for the conquerors to occupy that particular land. Target will be fulfilled. That is the reason why John Withrop has rightly explained that smallpox has been the blessings for the colonists, and it's a path of the way which has been given by the God himself by clearing the places and making the people to be the number in less. And the next, why did the people move towards India and China? Because in Europe we have poverty and hunger. In order to solve these problems, they need to find out and acquire more wealth, and they are already struggling with deadly diseases and with religious conflicts. So they need to find out some countries which are filthy rich to solve their economic crisis or problems or poverty and hunger. That's how they have searched for countries like Africa, India and China, which already gave an alternative for them to do hard work in America by the people of Africa known as slaves. So that's the momentum which have generated the slave trade during that time. Automatically the metal trade, minerals trade, gold trade and other products trade. By occupying them, colonized, conquest, spread of the diseases to various corners of the world. All these things are being interlinked with the main concept of trade. And by the end of the 18th century, cotton and sugar are being produced for the European markets by the African slaves, by the European countries. That's what have been a fabulous change of trade from the initial stages to the modernness. So as we discussed about the Indian entrepreneurs abroad, now we shall move to the other important aspect of Indian trade, the colonialization and the global system. How did the Indian market played a very vital role in the British market? How is it possible? That's the big fundamental question. Now in order to answer this fundamental question, let us try to find out the history that gives the answers for us. The fine cotton was initially exported from India to Britain. This is a known fact. But as Indian cotton is really a very fine cotton, which cannot be matched up with any other cotton which is produced in Britain or in Africa or in any other country. So the local cotton which was made by the Britishers was getting a very difficult and tough task from the Indian cotton which is being imported into Britain. So with this, the people of Britain started to raise their voices, like especially the industrial groups or the cotton merchants, that in order to safeguard the local interest, you need to put extra tariff restrictions or ban the import of Indian cotton into Britain. So with the pressure of the mercantile group and the industrialists, the Britain government imposed extra tariff taxes on Indian cotton. With that, the Indian cotton price has gone up, which became double cost almost when compared to the Britain's cotton. So automatically it resulted in the downfall of the Indian cotton import into Britain. Let us look at the statistics. According to the statistics, when the tariff tax has been increased, the Indian cloth began to come down. In 1815, when in 18th century it was 30%, by the time of 1815 it came down up to 15%, but by 1870s it completely came down to 3%, where it was at very zero level to the trade market. But at the same time, when the finished products trade has been coming down, declining, the raw material product from India to abroad also has gained very fast. If you look at the statistics for the raw material, this we have seen for the finished material. Now for the raw material, in 1812 it was 5%, whereas in 1871 it increased up to 35%. So when it is the finished product, the product is coming down here, the same way here the product went on. So the finished product place was replaced by the raw materials. And in order to understand it better, if you look at the trade relations between India and Britain, after leaving apart the cotton, the other major crop which was exported from India to Great Britain is indigo. The other next major important crop. The first major important crop was cotton. The second major important crop was indigo. So indigo has been exported from India to Great Britain in a very large scale. After it is being exported here, I think you all remember that opium wars, where Britishers want to sell opium in China, where China people have restricted that one. So it was a very difficult task. This led to the wars, first war and second war, where finally Britishers were successful, defeated China and got opium into the trade of China. But before that, when China people were restricting the trade of opium was largely produced by the Indians, actually by the Britishers in Indian land, and then this has been exported to China, and from there the product, whatever money they are getting from that is being used to finance the tea and the other businesses in China. So that's how India has been used by the Britishers for a very long time. And not only this, India has been a saving bank for them, because the trade which the Britishers are doing with India is a surplus trade. They are in the trade surplus when compared to other countries, because Britishers, they have lot of other countries also to share their market. Once the cotton of India has been stopped off with the increase of tariffs, they started to expand their cotton to the other countries to get the global market. So for every product of Great Britain, they started to make it as a global product and selling it to the other countries and making it a very wide market. At the same time, Indian trade, whatever they have, is a surplus trade. So they used to use the extra amount of money, whatever they are getting from here, to balance the deficit where they are getting loss in any other country, where they are doing the business for loss. Also, to balance that one, they used to use the economy of the Indian business, whatever they are getting. And they were also using the home charges, which was actually paid as a extra compensation amount for the British officials who are staying in India. The extra amount that has been paid. So that's how the colonial system of the third country will be providing benefits for the mother country in order to compensate the loss between A, Britishers, to some other country in Africa, let us put it B, but the actual loss has been compensated by the other country like India C. So A and B are doing business directly, A and C are also doing business. If A and B business is in loss, the A and C business is in positive, that would automatically lead to compensate the loss which is present in A and B business sector. So that's how the Britishers used the Indian business, and this created the global supply and system for them. So the Indian trade has been connected with the global colonialism. From colonialism, it started to establish the global system. The Indian cotton, which was initially being exported from India to Great Britain, was forced to have tariff because of the stiff competition what it is getting from the Indian durable cotton. Then because of the lack of this, the cost of the product has been doubled, so automatically the trade has come down. The figures show for us this one. In 18th century it was 30%, in 1815 it came down to 15%, by 1870 it came nearly to 33%, which at the same time the raw material which is being taken from India has increased from 5% to 35%, whereas the indigo, the next major product which has been imported from India, is to get the other benefits, because the Britishers always used to keep Indian trade as a surplus trade for them, because they have a wide market and they used to make Indians to produce opium, and from this they used to sell opium to the China people, and from that money they used to finance the tea and the other wooden businesses whatever they have in China. And Indian extra income was an additional income to compensate the loss which is being incurred for the Britishers while they were doing any kind of business with the other countries in the other parts of the world. That's how the colonialism helped one country's loss to be recovered by the third country without involving into the first and the second country's business directly. Now, the rebuilding a world economy after the war, the post-war era, is another important aspect which we need to cover it completely and clearly, because we have seen the World War I, then we have seen the impact of World War I, and how did the country start to gain back from World War I, and then how did they move further, and what happened next. So after the country started to recover slowly after the Great Economic Depression, within a very short span of 20 years, the world has witnessed the Second World War. The Second World War has played a very major role in the lives of the people, and not only the people, in every corner of the world, the impact has been felt. And this is the dangerous man-made catastrophe which has been experienced by the 20th century people. Nearly 60 million people died because of the Second World War, and many of them are soldiers and the working men. And in the First World War, if you look closely and study closely, it led to the emergence of USA as a dominant power after the World War I. When we discussed about the post-recovery period of World War I, US is lending money to UK, where prior to this UK was filthy rich, it's having excess trade, surplus trade, but the situation changed after World War I. But after World War II, US dominance also came down a bit and USSR dominance started to increase. USA and USSR together fought against the Germans, Nazi. Germany people also improved very well their economy in the past 10 years before the World War II. They also gave a very tough fight. Only with the entry of USSR, the game has been changed completely. USSR, initially it was a very undeveloped, backward agricultural country. But as the time passed on, as years changed on, when the capitalist world like USA headed countries were struggling with economic depression, the country which has seen the capital stability, fully economic stable and strong army, and gave a very good lesson to the world through the new concept of communist policy. So it also gave a chance for the Russia to emerge as a superpower nation in the world after the Second World War. And then along with this, it also maintained a stable income for the countries. Why we need to have a stable income? After the Second World War, many of the experts who studied the detailed procedure, reasons and pros and cons of the World War II, they were able to understand that some things are compulsory to have a global market, a full income, full employment, then only we would not fall into the economic depression. Otherwise, we will definitely fall into the economic depression. So then, the two major lessons what we learned is, first one from the Second World War is stable economy should be maintained, and then full employment. How can you maintain a stable economy in a country? We can maintain a stable economy in a country only with the involvement of that particular country's government in the capital and the flow of the goods. This is another important understanding of Second World War. So then they realize that government's role is crucial not only in income but also in providing employment opportunities to all of its citizens. And like this understanding, the UN Monetary Financial Committee conference was held at New Hampshire in USA in July 1944 in order to understand, discuss and to have a stable economy with this. It was also known as Bretton Woods meet, where after the conference they decided to establish the International Monetary Fund and also to develop the countries which are getting newly independence or which are struggling from the colonial problems. The International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, most of the times it is called as World Bank. So these IMF and IBRD are popularly known as Bretton Woods twin brothers or twin sisters. So this started to work from 1947 and USA started to be the game changer from Second World War period. Though USSR has been a stable economic country, the influence of US was more in establishing the IMF and the IBRD. So they made it very clear that dollar would be the determining currency to determine what is the cost of the gold, and with that they decided to have $1 is equal to 1 ounce of gold, and this has been the standard currency of that time. But due to the changes of the situations of the Second World War, as Britain became completely weak and it could not further hold any of its colonies for a long time, they decided to give freedom for some of the countries. So decolonization started, new countries started to become independent or colonized countries started to become independent. This gave further a boom for the countries to discuss the other possible alternatives. Now once the countries are becoming independent, the newly emerging countries are having a very difficult and tough task in front of them. That is how to fill or how to eliminate poverty from their own countries who have been facing the colonial dominance from hundreds of years. So this started to question the ability of US dollar's determination. Till that time US was a very stable economy, but because of the bankruptcy in US or because of the turbulences of the finances and the growing of the eastern economies like China, Japan and all these countries, the focus of the IMF also shifted from European countries and the Western countries towards the Eastern Europe, Asian and the African countries. So that initiated the process of having a new group of countries, that is G7 countries, or establishing or asking for a demand to have a new international economic order, that is NIEO. So this is how the post Second World War, the rebuilding of the world happened, and this not only initiated the process for the development of the countries. In this, the dollar mark also lost its prominence, and because of the international fluctuations in the economy, that resulted in the growth of the situations which further raised that dollar could not be further a standard currency, and dollar also started to come down its value in competence with the gold. That's how the new international economic order has been placed. And many of the colonial master countries, even though for namesake they have given freedom for the colonial group countries, but for the most of the times they only used to control all the natural resources of the countries and keep under their name. Even US used to control many of the other countries' oil reserves for a very longer period of time. That's how the new dimensions and new outlook of the countries started to come out after the Second World War, and the efforts are being made to improve the standard of living of the people from all sides, and every issue started to be debated, discussed, and then the further action has been taken. That's what we have learned in this unit, and especially in the fourth part of the scheduled part of the lesson, that is the Second World War, the impact of the Second World War and the emergence of the USSR. The stable income is the most important understanding of the Second World War, and the full employment also should be taken by the responsibility of the government. These two ideologies gave to have a international summit, that is United Nations Monetary Financial Conference was held, and this was headed by USA, held in USA only, in the Hampshire, and then Bretton Woods twins or brothers were introduced, that is IMF and the IBRD. In 1947 they started to work, and the standard currency has been determined as dollar, and that is for 1 ounce of gold. But the situations changed drastically. Dollar also started to be questioned. Why is a dollar a standard currency? Because there are fluctuations in the dollar currency also, and the economic situations also. The newly decolonized countries started to become independence, and they also started to have a new group, that is the Group 7, especially requesting and asking in a loud manner to have a new international economic policy which will bar off all the colonial master countries to hold the natural resources which are not providing any benefits for the own country which owns the reserves. Like this, the country started to rebuild their structure after the Second World War. As the country started to ask for the change of the twin brother system of this Bretton Woods, then the system has got completely changed, and the multinational companies started to shift their production units towards the low wage income country groups in Asia and Africa, which also gave a boom to have MNCs into the Asian corners and towards the African countries, where TVs, cell phones, all these started to come at very less cost, and the economy of Japan, India and China started to get transformed from a low income group countries to a middle and average income group countries. So that's how the Second World War, and after the World War period, the country started to grow their economy by building their economic status internally and also globally. So the Rindersport or the cattle plague, as we were discussing about the cattle plague, let us now first find out how was the situation there before the arrival of the cattle plague. Plague was a very dangerous disease which changed many of the people's life. These people were actually filthy rich. It means that there is no necessity for them to work, but the situations turned them to become as daily wage labor. Let us now go into the details. In Africa, around some 1890s, the Britishers occupied many places in Africa. With the discovery of sea route to Africa through via the Cape of Good Hope, they all were able to get the clarity on the countries which are located in the African continent. Slowly, with their armies, they were able and capable to establish the rule over that regions. Once they were able to establish the rules over that regions, then they understand that the people here are less in number, but they have thousands of cattle along with them. Population is less, cattle is more, which means that literally the number of people, those who own the cattle, have more amount of cattle in their household. So along with their houses, the population is less, land is more, cattle is more. So there is no need for them to earn anything, to acquire anything, because they are already having their own lands, their own properties, their own cattle to provide daily feed for them. Now the problem for the Britishers is that these Britishers could not find anybody who is ready to work at very less wages. This was an unexpected problem for the Britishers, because the abundant land and the relatively small population made them to lead a very comfortable life without having any extra income for them. So all these possibilities made them to understand clearly that they have a chance to earn something. But while the chance is being left out for them, there is no other alternative provided for them. So these all things clearly restrained the impact of the Britishers. Yes, these people are capable of occupying the control of the lands, but people are not poor here and not willing to work for a very less amount of wage which is provided by the Britishers. Britishers want them to work for free or for very less wage. When there is everything available for them without doing any work, why would the people do work for them? So these all conditions created a new problem for them, that is no need to work for the Africans. So there is no availability of labor for the Britishers to work in their plantations, to work in their mines, so all these things. So basically Africans are not very rich, but African land is more, people are less, cattle is there for them. So the number of people live in Africa are less when compared to the countries like India and China. So that made the Britishers to think the other possible alternatives to find out the solution. Once they realized all these things, then they decided to go for inheritance law. The existing law has been modified. What is the necessity for them to modify the existing law? As we just now discussed that there are no people available for them to work, and the basic thing is in Africa the population is also very less. So there are two possibilities. Either you need to force a group of people to come and work them, or you need to get people from some other country to work here. Getting people from somewhere far away places to Africa is a very difficult task during that time. And the other possible option is motivate the people, those who are in Africa, or force the people, those who are staying there, to work for them. So that's how the Britishers decided to modify the existing laws. The inheritance laws. The inheritance law means any family property which is owned by a particular family, if the elder person of the family passes away, then automatically that property passes to the next generation of the people. It depends on the country to country, it varies, like it should be given equally to all the male and female members, or boys and girls and all. In almost in all the countries now it is observed that it is given equally for boys as well as for the girls. But during this time only, the family property which is owned by a particular family can be inherited only by one particular person of the family. That too, he should be the natural heir of the family. He cannot be an adopted person. So when if a family is having 3 members or 4 members and only one is eligible to get the family properties under his name, the rest of the 3 are now termed as jobless people because of the law which was passed by the Britishers, that is the inheritance laws. So this inheritance law made the possibility of the people to find a job which is suitable for them, because naturally they are not the owners of their own properties, because it is given only for a particular person. It is given only for a particular one person in the family. So the rest of the 3 members or the 4 members or 5 members or the other person who is left out, if in case the family has only 2 people, then the rest of people are forced to find a job now. So this was brought by the Britishers. This was the impact of the colonization in Africa. So when this situation came, the people started to think to find some jobs. So as the Britishers need the people to work for them, here the situation is the people need jobs to work. So Britishers need and the requirement of the people in Africa was equated with the law of inheritance laws. So this situation brought the people to the legs of the Britishers, and Britishers started to utilize this one in a very effective manner, because they knew that if they give freedom for them, many people will not work under them. They will not be showing any interest to work, because already they are habituated of owning their own properties. So they forced the people, they forced them to confine to stay only within their compounds, in the mining compound or in the estate compounds, and they never allowed them to move freely, as we have seen in the tea estates happening in Assam during the British India period. So this is how the Britishers, earlier they were not able to find any person to work for them, but later they modified certain laws which are existing in Britain, which are existing already in Africa. The inheritance laws was completely modified in such a way that it brings the people to search for jobs. So this search for jobs made the people to move towards Britishers. Britishers rightly utilized the chance of this one, as they were waiting for this opportunity. They started to encash this one by making the people to work very hard, very long times, and not allowing them to go home and spread the tortures or the difficulties which are there in their work, day-to-day works. So that's how the Britishers managed to get this one. This is a background picture of the effect of render spread of the cattle plague. Before the cattle plague spread in Africa, this was a picture. So what happened after the cattle plague has stepped into Africa? What are the changes that it brought in the day-to-day lives of the people of Africa? We will check it. So with the impact of the render spread or the cattle plague, what happened in Africa? The render spread came to Africa in around the late years of 1880s. Within a very short span, it spread to initially it was found in the eastern coast. Later on, very soon it was found to the western coast, and very fast it reached to the Cape of Good Hope, covering the entire Africa. Entire Africa was impacted with the cattle plague. Before going into the details, let us find out who brought the cattle plague to Africa. It is none other than the Britishers, in order to feed their Italian soldiers who are living in Africa. In order to feed them, the animal were brought from Britain to Africa. In the meanwhile, the animal got certain diseases which were not cured. The same dead animals and the living animals which are alive were brought to African lands, where the living animals were also being impacted with the diseases which were consumed as a diet and also were left out openly in African land, which initially started to spread in the eastern parts of Africa like Eritrea, and later on it spread like a forest wildfire, a very fast growth, the disease, because as we discussed earlier, African lands are very large and also they have more amount of cattle available for them. Abundant cattle is there. So this may be also one of the reason, because the disease spread from one animal to another animal also was very high, which spread from east to west and from then to the entire deep south, which covering all the countries, where no country is being left out without the impact of the cattle plague. The cattle plague made nearly 90% of the cattle of Africa to be washed away from there. So this situation forced the African people to turn into laborers, daily wage laborers. This kind of situation also gave chance for the British colonial people, as they were also trying to make laws to change the attitude of the Africans, but the spread of the cattle plague made the work very easy for the Britishers, the plantation owners, the mine owners, all these people, to force the Africans to work under them. And the colonial government was really very successful in occupying the other empty lands where people are completely dissatisfied and shocked with the loss of their animal wealth. Then Africans were converted into labor force. This is how the people, initially they were not willing to work, were forced and willingly joined the struggle of battle of labor. Because we all know that Britishers never used to have even a common attitude of the fellow human beings, because they used to feel that these people are born only to work for us, in order to increase the glory of the Britishers. That's how the plan was there. And these Africans, initially they were rich, but because of the cattle plague, their fates are completely changed. Now they themselves are ready and willingly joining towards the labor force. So the impact of colonization can also be taken, the other side of the angle is this, because one side of the coin is that the lifestyles have changed, the impact have brought certain amount of modernization, certain amount of different dressing styles, different materials, technology has been improved in the countries where they were made as colonies by the other countries. But here, the country which was prosperous, people are self-sufficient, turned completely into a situation where they were not at all willing to work. From that kind of situation, they moved on to a place where the situations are completely different and they were forced to work at any cost. These kind of all these things were an added situation. And finally, colonialism can also be understood in a different way. This would be a right example for that. And after this, the labor were having different names branded by this one. Let us find out about the laboring system in the British rule. Now, we shall discuss about the third interwar transformation. How did the war economy changed? How did the economy got increased? And later on, how did the economy fell down? So first we shall try to understand what are the factors that gave the rapid growth for the economy under the heading of wartime transformations. Wartime transformations name itself reveals for us that during the wartime there was a huge transformation of the currencies. So as initial stages of the war, there are two groups, Allied group, the Axis group, which were ready to fight the war. So Germany, Austria and Hungary as one group, the Axis group, the Allied group, Britain, US which joined later, and Russia which went off in the middle. So like this, two groups joined together and fought the war. In the initial years, like when it was started in the month of June and August. So they thought the war would last for maximum for 3 or 4 months, and then war would be ended by the coming Christmas, means December. Because Christmas is something which is considered as a very holy festival and a very large festival in the Western nations. But they never expected that it is going to be for nearly 4 years, and the world has witnessed the drastic and the catastrophic war. So the First World War gave a chance for the people to find some new jobs which they have never ever thought of. The army started to grow in larger and larger size, because the armies are to be recruited with a more number of soldiers because of the long time expansion of the war, and then we need to buy more number of weapons, so which gave a rise for the weapon industries around the countries in the world. And then we have a possibility of passing the people from one region to another region. Transportation facilities have to be increased, and then the people, in order to attack each other, they need to have more and more strength to maintain the stability, and more amount of money is being spent on the war weapons. So finally the huge investment on the war weapons made the countries to keep more than half of their wealth in that, and during this time only the Britishers were able to take more amount of debt from the US citizens as well as from the US government very liberally. So this process of the First World War, where the transformation has got changed from a place where there was no bread to the people to a situation where the people were getting handful of works. They need more amount of cotton, the uniform cloths for the soldiers, production of rice in order to feed the soldiers not only in their own country but also in the abroad countries wherever they are fighting the wars. And then they also need more amount of weapons, they also need more number of soldiers. So the demand and the living standard of the people started to grow day by day, and the country started to spend more economy to buy the war equipments, war weapons, and start to invest more in the war items. So like this, the situation got transformed, which increased the investments in millions of rupees. This was really a very great change which has occurred during the transformation. So in the first stage of understanding the interwar economy, the wartime transformation gives us a clear picture that because of the World War I, the situations have changed drastically. Because of the change of the situations drastically, the movement went on to a very crucial stage. So now, whenever they need anything that like soldiers, like food, or to buy the war equipment, they need to invest huge amount. So the huge amount because of the war was spent on the roads. Millions of rupees were laid down waste on the roads, because the investment what we do for war is nothing but a unreturned income. So it's not a profitable business according to the businessmen people who say that war investments are waste investments. Somehow many of the historians also come to the same opinion, because the money which is spent for fighting war, or to recruit the personnel for war, or to buy weapons during the wartime is something where you need not get back anything at any point of time. Now, After the wartime transformation happened, Britishers came to a situation, yes, though Britishers were victorious, the situation is Britishers are in a huge debt to the US citizens as well as for the US government, because the Britain people, whenever they need money, they used to take it very liberally from the US citizens as well as from the US government also. So these all things made US to come down economically, and it could not further hold and give a very strong fight to the other countries in the world who are expanding, and industrialization started to grow during that point of time. The second major aspect after the war, what was the situation of the Britain? As I told you just now, Britishers started to take money liberally from the US citizens as well as from the US government. So that made US to come down drastically in economically. Though Britain was victorious in the war, but the situations turned very drastically and could not find the possible alternative of getting the fruits of the victory, because they have spent huge money at various corners of the world which is not going to be returned back, but the debts remained clearly in the name of the Great Britain. So finally, the situation is that Britishers, though they were victorious, they were part of the victory team. They were able to defeat Germany and Austrian team, but literally they are in the severe economic debts to the US people. And after the war, when the war boom came less, contracted, when it was reaching to its lower levels, because once war has been stopped, there is no need to produce any war weapons further, and no country will be willing to buy those things. So this made the country to still come down further, because most of the people, those who are working in any of the industries related to war, has come down. So this also increased in 1921. Out of every 5 persons, 1 person lost the job. 1 person was thrown out of the job because there was a war boom contrast. So this also affected the economy of the Great Britain. But during this time only, the Japanese people industries started to grow further. And some of the industries have come up in China also. So with the growth of economy in Japan, in China, and in some of the parts of India, Indian national movement also came to be a very strong agitation movement. So these all also gave impact on the growth of Great Britain. While Great Britain is severely suffering from the economic debts of the US people, and also scarcity of the jobs, unemployment situation, where people are completely dissatisfied with the existing systems. So now these all added for the post-war period for the Great Britain. Yes, initially they were very happy when the war was happening, economy was supported for them, they got huge funds from their friends from the US and the government of the US also. But as the time passed on, when they need to repay back, literally Great Britain started to fall down, and most of the wealth what it has taken as loan has been invested in the war economy, where they were not able to get any kind of extra benefits from that. So finally, lot of money, means millions of money, was invested on the roads, where they were not getting any kind of returns back for that. But the debts have to be cleared finally to the US people. And in the same time, when US is giving loans like this, the other in the east, Japan started to rise up very fast. Industrialization started rapidly there. Their growth reached to very high level. Their economy became stable. Their soldier strength increased, and they became very fast rising country in the east, then in India, then in China. So all these movements also added for the conditions to become crucial and difficult for the Great Britain people as well as the Great Britain to manage the colonial powers as well as the home situations. Then when we move on to the rise of mass production, when the mass production has to be raised, the concept of mass production was first initially involved in US. It was the company called Ford which has brought the mass production aspect to a very peak of its extent. How did these people get the idea of doing mass production? What is the necessity of doing mass production? The problem is here. As the economy has come down not only in Britain but also in US, because of the war, the impact has also been felt in US, but the fastest recovered country was United States. Because when these people started to realize that we are not able to get any money back, they started to invest their monies in the other industries rather than in the war industries. Now, the money which has been lended were been asked back, so they were started to get back their money, and this made the forced situations difficult for UK people, but it is a positive trend for the US people. So US people started to do investments, slow rapid industrialization was started. This industrialization process was very slow and not very impressive during that time. But looking at the conveyor belt method of bringing the newspaper down or doing the milk packets packing, all these things observed by Ford company in charge, he realized that with the mass production, we can make the same work done by the conveyor belt. The conveyor belt will repeat the same work which has to be done by it. So automatically the production will increase because the mass production will bring more further benefits for them. And also during that time, he also made it very clear that in front of every conveyor belt, we should have a manual labor standing. So when a manual labor is standing in front of a conveyor belt and making it to work, he does not dare to leave this one and go and chit chat with his friends, or even if he takes a break also, he will take it for a very short time. This is how the initial idea of mass production was started. He started the industry, and in that production, he increased the production. With this, he made the industrial workers to work for a very long time and started to earn more and more profits. With this, more number of the industrial workers started and decided to resign to their jobs because they were not able to cope up with the necessity of the work, and it becomes very difficult for them to inculcate them with the technology which is very new for them. But during that time, Ford for the first time has doubled the daily wage for them, and this doubling of the wage attracted the employees again back, and then company started to gain 3 times, 4 times further. This added for this, and it proved very successful for the efforts made by the Ford management, and he dared enough to say that the best way of cutting down the tax or cutting down of his income or expenditures was to increase the wages of the employees. Generally, we feel increasing the wage of the employees is a burden for the company, but for the first time in the history where the production has been increased and also the cost of income was also very high for the company, that's how he made a statement that the best way to cut down the expenditure is to increase the wages of the employees. This made a great change in the mass production. This mass production started to spread not only in US, from US it started to spread to various corners of US, from then it started to move to the other countries of Europe. So as the situation started to turn towards the positive side, so from 1921-22 the industrial production started to reach to its peak, and further it started to going on further. But during that time only, there is something that happened to bring the entire countries to trouble. When initially the loan which was given by the US citizens, they decided to take back their loan amounts. The Britishers, the other countries, whoever has taken the loan, they are forced to pay back the loans. But when they were forced to pay back the loans where they are not having money, the economy has been started to tremble for that particular countries. And it's not only that, the impact was not only on the countries who took loan from US, it is also on the countries like US also. So that is nothing but the Great Economic Depression took place in the year 1929. So the Great Economic Depression, why do we call this one as a Great Economic Depression, is the impact of the Great Economic Depression was felt in each and every corner of the world. As we discussed till now, the mass production concept has given a boom for the US economy, and the recovery of US economy has also added a boom for the European economy to recover. But finally, in 1929, when the economic depression hit the world, the first major thing what US did was the US people started to ask back their loans. Initially, it was very free for the countries to get loan from US, and it is around 1927-28 period. The amount of money given as loan was more than 1 billion. But in the very next year, it came down to just 1/4 of the amount. So it shows all the countries which are associated with the trade and with the investments of the US were drastically coming down. And in order to support their own country's stability, they started to increase the export duties and all and import duty charges. This also made the other countries the situation more worst. And along with this, they also were started to ask them to repay back the loans. And in competition with the dollar, the British pound sterlings also started to fall down literally. And not only this, all the countries, whichever country is associated with the financial assistance of the US, was trying to face a lot of difficulties because of the situation. So all these things added and improved the situation, more difficulties for the people during that period. The economic depression has reduced the employment opportunities, and the banks started to ask to repay back all the loans in order to save the situation from great economic depression. So the impact was not only felt in Europe. As the money was being removed from the US hands, the money started to get back to the US countries, but not literally in US also. In US also, many companies were being shut down. Many banks are being closed. So when we talk about the impact of US, especially because of the great economic depression, US was also not left out. US also got its impact. US also was facing a lot of problems. Nearly 4,000 banks in US were declared as bankrupts. They could not return the money back to the investors. So 4,000 banks were shut down, and nearly 110,000 companies were closed because of unable to pay back the loans and unable to pay the salaries to the employees. So this was a situation around some 1933, 1934. But by 1935, the situations turned little bit positive sign, and the economy started to improve in a good sign, where the countries again started to focus on the development and the industrial growth. Now let us discuss what is the impact of great economic depression on the Indian land. So 19th century has played a very vital role in the world economy. So the economists started to study, to dig the facts, to understand what factors have changed the outlook of the world economy. So if you look at the 19th century, actually we term 19th century from the 1801 to 19th century, but here the 19th century has been termed from 1815 to 1914. So this term has been considered as a crucial 19th century period. So during this term, the shape or the economy has got, not only the financial status of the countries has got changed, but also in the various forms, like the economics, the entire economy has been got reshaped. Then the political changes have occurred whole across the globe. The society has witnessed certain changes. The culture has got transformed, mixed, and the metropolitan, cosmopolitan culture has got established. Then technology started to influence the people in a very larger scale. This is how the 19th century has been changing the entire shape of the society. The society got remoduled into its framework. It has been changing its original form and getting into a new form, like how amoeba changes its shape. The society has got complete transformation from this. If you study in the point of view of economics, the economy, the transformation of the societies has been a crucial step of the 19th century. As it is described by many of the economists, that flow has been increased rapidly during the 19th century. What has been flowing? What was the flow? How did the flow start? What is the flow that is being termed by the economists? What flow are they referring to? The referring of the flow is in regards to three main aspects. One is international economic exchanges. Money started to flow. Economy started to get exchanged from one country to another country. The second major factor is labor. The people in search of jobs started to migrate from one place to another place, not in a walkable distance. They started to move from one corner of the world to the other corners of the world. They started to cross the oceans and seas with a hope that they can survive somewhere leaving their own homelands. So that has given birth to the concept of immigration. So the immigration has come into existence. Then after the concept of immigration has come into existence, then we have the capital. Now talking truly about the money. As we started to discuss about the capital, capital means truly about the finance, money. The money investments were earlier restricted themselves only to the short term money loans, but later on these have got transformed into long term loans, and these long term loans have always focused not only within their own countries, but they have moved abroad to very larger regions. So as the time passed on, the capital investments were also started to move on from one continent to other continents, far off places. So the 19th century has brought a complete change in the outlook of the society. That is the reason why it is rightly termed as the society has been got transformed. Reshaping of the existing relations has been occurred. So that is why the 19th century has not only changed the economic status of few countries in Europe, but they were also able to influence many of the countries in Asia, in Africa, in America, and also in Latin American countries. So the 19th century base or the key factor was a change. The change in economic, political, social, cultural and the technological aspects, which has got the society into complete transformation, and this can be judged in 3 bullet points like flow of international economic exchanges. It can be dollar moving from one corner to another corner, it can be rubles, it can be pounds. So it started to move on from one corner to another corner. So the exchange started to move rapidly, and then the labor in search of job, the hope that we can do some work and we can survive somewhere which is though far away from our own motherland, leaving and sacrificing their own mother own countries and moving on to the new countries and doing a lot of hard work there and trying to earn something, some bread to survive. That has given to the rise of the concept of immigration. And later on we have the main key focus, that is capital. The capital investments from short term loans to long term loans also played a very vital role. So this is the brief introduction of the 19th century. What are the major changes that were brought in this century in respect to the UK people? So as the time passed on, by the 19th century, the world economy started to take its shape. The world economy, how did it get into its shape? That is the main factor here. As the goods started to changing in the food production. For example, if you take in Great Britain, till that time the people were started to consume only the bread. But as the situation started to change, they started to have corn as one of the staple food for them. When they initially started to have corn, they had availability of corn, and as corn is not taken by everybody so regularly, so it was very easy for them to manage and get the corn to the required population. As cost and availability is less, the corn became a major food for all the people, and this made the import of corn to be restricted by the government officials by making corn laws. So when the corn laws were imposed, the self-sufficiency of the Great Britain to provide food for all its citizens lost its capability to provide food or feedback for them. So as there are laws which are restricting the import of corn the corn items. So now it is a very difficult task for them to supply corn for the other people, and it became costly for them. So the food started to become costly in Britain. So the industrialists, the businessmen people forced the government to scrap away the corn laws and avail the availability of importing corn from the far off nations. So when these corn laws were being scrapped off, then the people started to get more availability of corn from other corners of the world, especially from the eastern part of Asia and Europe. The lands in the eastern Europe, Russia, Australia are being cleared completely in order to fulfill the needs of the Britain people. So the production of the corn has become a major crop in Eastern Europe, in Russia and in Australia. So as the time passed on, the production of corn has increased in a very large scale, and the availability of corn has become at very less cost for the Britain people. With this, the Britishers decided not to cultivate corn at all in the homeland. It's very cheap and less cost when it is imported from the other countries. So when they decided to import it from the other countries, then thousands of men and women who were actually working in the agricultural fields were thrown out of the work. They were forced to leave the work because there is no situation for them to work further, because there is no production going on. And one more factor which added for the increase of imports to Great Britain was the increase in the trade. The Industrial Revolution has expanded the boundaries of trade for the companies of Great Britain, which made them to become richer and richer as a market has become a global market for them. So because of the availability of the global market tendency for them, the company owners, the industrialist people started to become richer and richer. This also added or created a boom to have more number of imports from the other countries. So like this, the production of local crop has been failed, it has been stopped. The Britain later lost the capability or self-sufficiency to feed its nationalist people. Then it was forced to scrap away the corn laws, which were actually restricting the import of corn from the other countries, and later on they have scrapped away the corn laws and started to import the corn from the Eastern Europe, Russia and the Australian countries. So when these demand for the corn has been increased in Great Britain, the countries like Eastern European countries, Russia and Australia cleared their lands and cultivated corn, which is at very less costly brought available for the Britishers. So Britishers started to import corn at very less cost when it is compared to the production when it is being made at their homelands. This resulted in the loss of job for the thousands of men and women in the Great Britain. So this situation has turned really a very drastic change in the world economy. Why we have to consider this one as a drastic change means, till that time many people used to travel from east to west, having a scope of better future towards the west. But once this tendency has started, now many people started to migrate from Britain to fulfill the needs of the Australian fields or the American fields, where there is a shortage of labor, the supply of labor. These people started to move to the other places in order to fulfill the needs, in order to get the betterment opportunities for them, in order to have something to eat rather than dying there with hunger or starvation. Today, the chapter 4, the making of global world. When we talk about the word globalization, or when we talk about the making of the world around, we always think that globalization is connected with economic systems. Globalization is the growth of the financial system in the past 50 years. But in this unit, we are going to study the various factors which are being present along with the change of the economic system in the modern era. So before the modern period, pre-modern period, what are the major contributors for the development of modernization? And in this chapter especially, we focus deliberately and precisely on the history of trade. How did the trade has contributed its efforts to make the world to become a global village? Then we think about the history of migration. When did the actual migration start? Or what was the major purpose or the reasons which forced the people to get migrated? Then we shall discuss about the search of work. What made the people to search about work? What are the factors that contributed the people to lose their work and brought them down to a condition where they have to search work? And later on we move on to the movement of the capital. How did the history tell us the initial stages of moving of the capital? And what are the factors that motivated the business people, the trade people to do large trades, and how are they well connected with each other? How they used to carry the huge amounts from one region to other region, how they started the trade initially, how it got expanded later, how the well connectedness and change of technology has brought very sufficient necessary equipment for the people to do large trade. And we also try to stress on the global interconnectedness. How did the world become globally interconnected towards it? So all these factors are also focusing for globalization. Other than this, we also have certain other factors from the age-old times or from the ancient times. In the ancient times, we have the people like travelers, traders, priests and the pilgrims who traveled from one corner of the world to the other corner. For example, we have Megasthenes traveling from China, Persia, across and coming to India, who studied about the Indian conditions and he went on to the Indonesian lands. So like that we have travelers who have traveled across the continents. So as the travelers in the ancient period, they were the sources of knowledge actually, because they traveled from one continent to the other continent, or it would be rather right to say that from one kingdom to another kingdom. When the kingdoms they have passed across and they have collected the evidences and they have recorded the evidences in their books that have played a vital role. So along with their journey, they also brought for us the social information about the kingdoms, which is not known for many of the people in the present day. So those were being the sources for us to learn about the history. And we also have priests and pilgrims contributing a large for the historical combinations, and interconnections between one kingdom to the other kingdom are established because of the large people moving from one kingdom to another kingdom, either by the host of the priests or to go on a pilgrimage. And the vast distances brought us lot of knowledge in the fields of money, values, then the skills, the ideas. How was the money used in a particular kingdom? How it is used in our kingdom? So we can compare it when we have the knowledge of the other kingdoms, currencies and all these things. When it comes to the values, for example, let us take India and Saudi Arabia. India is a secular state. Saudi Arabia is run by Islamic law. So we can compare what are the values that are valid there, what are the values that are not valid here. What are the values that are valid here and what are not practiced there. So this comparative study also can be done when you have the thorough knowledge of two different kingdoms. In the same way, we have the different skills. People of Persia, people of the Roman people are having well sculptured people. Greco-Buddhist art. The people have traveled from Greece to India to establish the Greco-Buddhist art, because there were people who brought the information for us. So skill also got passed from one region to another region. We have the great Buddha statues, which are just like the Greek sculptures which we have during that time. And then we have the ideas, the earlier ideas, the present ideas, the construction of the new models, the Islamic architecture. All these things are the transformation of the ideas from that kingdom to this kingdom. And we also have inventions, the modern technology getting inventions. So leaving aside all the positive asides, we also have some negative implications because of the passage of people from one area to the other area, or one kingdom to the other kingdom. That is the germs. Yes, you heard the word right, germs, not germs. Germs, the disease causing insects or animals. Initially, in India we don't have any diseases, or in China we don't have much diseases. But the people, those who got migrated from Europe towards the east, were having certain diseases. Later on, that spread to the diseases or people in India or in the other countries, which was also spreading the dreadful diseases like plague, smallpox. All these diseases are also the adding advantages when the people got transformed from one region to another region. So when we study about the transformation or the globalization, we just generally stress only on financial matters, only on the growth of the economies, but we most of the times neglect the important contributors of history. Those people are the trade, the migration, the search of work factors, the movement of the capital, global interconnectedness which is existing from the ancient times to the modern times, and we also have the ancient times travelers trade, priests and pilgrims, vast distances traveled by those people has not only fetches knowledge, money, values, skills and ideas, but also the germs, diseases which we were not aware of any such kind till that moment. And by 13th century, this has become an unmistakable link where you can have a good connectivity between the west to the modern east, or between the modern west to the present existing east. So this has established a fantastic linkage from the western part of the world to the modern eastern part of the world, where we have good transformation of the ideas. It may be in the form of values, knowledge, ideas, germs, diseases, whatever it may be, but the link has established certain relations between the people. It may be a trade link, it may be a migration link, it may be the people of search of work or intended labor, whatever it is, but it has brought a new outlook of global interconnectedness and the globalization. So that we are going to discuss in detail, step by step in this unit.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.